Well, I feel out of place. So I'm actually not from Silicon Valley. I haven't done a startup or started anything new, so please excuse me. I'm actually from New York. And I like what the first speaker said when he said that vision is not the most important thing. I'm going to tell you some stories and talk about how to live the overcoming life. I walked alone in the park, listening to the cheers of my classmates as they played softball all around me. You all remember that scene? Kids lined up to play sports and chose teams, and there was that kid that was picked last. I was never that kid. Actually, I never even had the opportunity to be that kid. You see, I was legally blind and could only see about 3 feet in front of me. So my teachers told me, you got to sit at our table when the kids pick teams. Baseball, it was off limits to me. It felt like invisible chains started to wrap themselves around me. You're blind. You can't play sports. Just accept it, they seemed to say. Likewise, when my 4th and 5th grade classmates were learning big kid stuff, like how to add and subtract, or learning how to recognize our home state of Texas on the map, I was sent to the special education classroom. There, I learned things that seemingly toddlers were learning, like how to take colored pegs and put them into the right colored holes in the pegboard, but I wasn't learning things that the other kids were learning. More chains. I'm the son of an immigrant family, and so education was of the most importance. Things like going to Harvard, they were at the top of the list. So my parents worked very hard to get me into the regular classes. And when I was in class, my teachers often saw me frustrated and upset. You don't need to work so hard, they would say. You know, the government can just take care of you. Because you're blind, they meant. One of the most difficult subjects for me was math. As someone who's visually impaired, I had to use a magnifying machine to magnify the text 10 or 20 times its size. And so the problem was that I couldn't see the whole page all at once. I moved the magnifying machine around on the page and oftentimes lost the problem that I was working on. Assignments took a frustratingly long time to do, and my report card showed a string of C's and D's. What was I going to do? Without any choice and anyone to help me, I decided that to survive, I needed to memorize the problem and put it in my head all at once. So I designed a system matching colors to numbers, black to 1, green to 2, pink to 3, red to 4, and so on. I literally painted the math problems in my head. Hooray, I thought, I don't have to use that blasted machine anymore. I could paint the solutions in my head. And you know, for the first time, I felt like the chains lifted, just a bit. In the 10th grade, I went for an eye operation that was to correct my low vision. Excitedly, they wheeled me into the post-operation exam room. They started removing the bandages. I couldn't see yet, so I waited for them to remove the rest. Nobody moved. Wanting to know what was going on, I reached my hand up to my face like this. When I didn't feel any bandages, I knew what had happened. I had lost the rest of my eyesight, and now I was totally blind. The depth of despair gripped me so hard that it froze me to my chair. It felt like someone took a bucket of ice water and poured it into the deepest reaches of my soul. How was I going to get around without crashing into things? How was I going to have friends when I couldn't do the things that friends did together? How was I going to find someone to love me? Would someone love someone who's blind, who's broken, who's defective? I didn't know. Each question brought on waves of doubt and despair, and I cried bitter tears of anguish. Here they were, those chains that were wrapping themselves around me, coming to life. The teacher that didn't think that I could play sports because I was blind. the school administrators that thought I couldn't do my classwork, and that teacher that tried to help but actually in reality told me that I wasn't expected to live more than a government-assisted life. And now the doubt and despair at becoming blind, the final chain that would fully and finally immobilize me. Before others would put chains on me and tell me that you can't. Now, I was in danger of telling myself that I can't, putting those very same chains on myself. In those days afterwards, I knew that if I had a chance to survive, to succeed, I had to excel. I had to be better than everybody else around me. I remembered those days when I had painted those math problems in my head, and when I had felt those chains lift just a little. Immediately, I started studying for my college entrance exams. Word by word, I memorized a book of 3,500 words and their definitions, drilled myself day and night until I knew those words cold. In the fall of that year, I returned to wrestling on the wrestling team in school. Before I could see my opponent, and I could see the out-of-bounds lines on the mat. But now things were all different. Now all I had was touch to guide me. Fear set in, and so did doubt. It was all that I could do to numb myself to all of that and drag myself to the start, because you know what happens when that whistle goes off? All you can do is react and wrestle as hard as you can, and that's what I did. Well, all that memorization paid off. I got a score in my exam that was higher than any student I knew of in the school. One chain broken. My wrestling career turned around from a losing record the year before to a winning one this year, and I made it to the state competition. Another chain broken. Despite the difficulty of becoming blind, my grades actually improved. In the fall of my senior year in high school, I received early entrance to Harvard. More chains breaking. I seemed to be walking under heavier and heavier burdens, but I was never crushed. As it says in the scriptures, God is your refuge and your strength. And indeed he was. When I got into Harvard, I felt that there was an ounce of hope. It's the kind of hope that's written about in the scriptures where it says that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance character, and character hope. And that hope I knew was the hope that has sustained me in my life up to now, and the hope that I knew that I needed in the years ahead. At Harvard, I needed someone to read my materials onto tape for me, about 10 books per class. Unfortunately, the university only recorded about 20% of that due to the lack of volunteer readers. Many days I thought, should I bother going to class? I have no idea what they're saying up there sometimes. You see, the professors assumed that students had read all of the assigned reading materials. Would I pass? Would I graduate? Learning classroom materials without the benefit of the reading is like putting a 1,000-piece puzzle together without a picture of the final result. There's the easy stuff, the edge pieces. Those are the readings that I did have, the lectures that I could attend and listen to. The rest, I tried to fill in the middle, but I wasn't always sure that I was doing it correctly. Uncertainty followed me around like a shadow, but like a shadow, it was powerless to stop me from just putting one foot in front of the other, taking it one day at a time, one assignment at a time, one class at a time. After the difficulty and uncertainty of college, I graduated from Harvard with honors. More chains breaking. The challenges got bigger, but so did the voices of I can't. In 2001, I decided practicing law would be a good career for me. So I went to law school. And in law school, I used a computer for just about everything. 5 short years after graduating from college, I could now obtain my books in PDF format. And I could jump around in the text just like the other students could, flip from page to page in their books, making all of those mental connections. I turned the speed of my screen reader up so fast that I could read as fast, if not faster, than the other students. However, when it came time to take the bar exam, the board refused to let me use a computer. The only option they gave me was to have someone read the exam onto tape. That's like reading a 200-page novel on a one-line teleprompter. I knew that I had to know the material cold. I knew I had to know it better than everybody else because I couldn't skip around in the exam book from place to place looking for the answers. So I studied 12 hours a day for 3 months straight, and I passed the exam with a score 25 points higher than a passing score. Like with many diseases, icantism starts small. A teacher or a parent refusing to indulge a sense of adventure on the playground. Maybe I wanted to climb up the slide. No, you can't do that. Gathering up a cadre of its friends with the familiar "you can't do that" phrase. The baby icantism teaches us that we should steer clear of our playground overlords and do the safe thing, like hopscotch or kickball. As adolescents, the relative safety of icantism finds its kindred spirit in a whole society of other icantisms. So long as I blended in, so long as I played it safe, so long as I didn't do anything too crazy, I'd be fine. However, as when we become adults, the icantism faces many questions. What about, can I climb Mount Kilimanjaro? Can I run a marathon? Can I skydive? We're all too ready to deliver the "I can't" answer. In fact, "I can't" plays back in our minds so often that only in the most ordinary of circumstances are we ready to deliver that phrase. In February of 2017, Dan Berlin, a good friend of mine who's also visually impaired, and I were on the phone. Dan and I share a love of endurance sports. Dan, what's the most difficult thing you could think of doing? Riding my bike across the country, he said. Hey, let's go do it, I said. So in June of 2018, after raising $200,000, assembling a team of 34 volunteers, and riding 3,100 miles from California to Maryland in 7 days and 15 hours, we became the first all visually impaired cycling team to complete the Race Across America, the most difficult cycling race in the world. And you may be expressing incredulity that I would accept such a challenge without hesitation. I've learned to say yes to almost everything automatically. I learned to go past "I can't" to "how can I?" And everyone in this room could do the same thing. How can I, you might ask? It's inoculating your mind against "I can't" in all of its various forms. It's a battle fought on many fronts, day by day. It's refusing to hear the voice of "I can't" and watching it grow slowly and slowly smaller in your rearview mirror. With each chain that was broken, I took the pieces and wove for myself a coat of armor. It became a defense to the daily onslaught of icantism. It helped me to have the reflex reaction to go past "I can't" to "how can I?" Fighting icantism goes something like this. The 5 R's, I like to call it. Scene 1. Recognize that icantism is like the Wizard of Oz. It hides behind a curtain, big and loud, but all it can do is try to instill fear. Scene 2. Fight it. Rob it of its power. Tell it that you know that all it is a voice behind a curtain and you won't listen to it. Scene 3. With that newfound freedom, do something different. Ready a plan to fight it. Whether you start with the biggest challenge or the lowest hanging fruit, that choice is up to you. Scene 4. React with purpose. Do something to move forward, no matter how small it might be. Scene 5. Realize that you are stronger now. Reflect that you're now off the bench and in the game. Oh, and the most important one, Repeat, repeat, repeat. An ocean fills up one drop at a time, and you will overcome icantism, one glorious victory after another. Take it as a personal challenge now to say no to the first I can't voice that comes to your mind. It might already be crying out to you as you sit there in your seat. I'll see you out there on the battlefield, and let me be the first person to tell you that you can. Thank you.